Hi, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. I'm going to take a look at this Killer Sudoku today. This has been requested by one of the viewers, David. Thank you very much for sending it in. It's from an Android app called Sudoku. It's a hard-rated puzzle, and David notes that he's made a bit of progress on his solve, and he could brute force it, but he wants to find some way that's more elegant of making the next steps. So let's take a look at the puzzle now and see what we can see. Now, the first thing with any Killer Sudoku is to fill in sort of the obvious candidates in restricted cages. So this requires, I suppose, a little bit of experience. You have to know that 6 cages in 3 cells can only be the numbers 1, 2 and 3. This 30 cage in 4 cells, that can only be 6, 7, 8 or 9. It's always important to remember the basic rules of any puzzle you're doing, and the fact that in a Killer Sudoku a number cannot be repeated in a cage. I mean, it sounds like an obvious thing to say for experienced solvers, but sometimes you can forget about it, especially when cages stick out of their blocks. Now, if we actually look at this 35 cage, this is 5 cells large, so that can actually only be made one way. 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 add to the number 35, as those of you who are used to solving Kakuru puzzles will know. Now that means this cell here can only be a 5 because we already have a 6, 7, 8 and 9 in the 3x3 block. So that gives us our first number, and it means that we can do the 6, 7, 8, 9 fill in down here. Look, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this actually allows you to make your first sort of nice deduction. We can use this 5, it's very powerful, and the reason it's powerful and a good tip for advanced Killer Sudoku solving is when you have 2 cell blocks like this 10 cage here. It's obvious when we think about it in isolation that we can't put a 5 in the block because that will lead to a repeated 5. But sometimes it's easy to miss that. But look at the effect down here in this bottom 3x3 block of this 5. We can't put a 5 here because there's a 5 in the column, and we can't put a 5 in either of these 2 cells because that would lead to a repeated 5 in the 10 cages. All of which means there's actually only one place a 5 can go in the bottom 3x3 block now, and that's there, which is a nice spot. Now when I'm solving Killer Sudoku, what I then do is I'd make notes like that. So this is slightly out of kilter with what we recommend for normal Sudoku puzzles, where I'd normally only pencil mark if a number was restricted to 2 positions. But with Killer Sudoku you need to be a little bit more flexible, I think. Now, well, where can we place a 4 in this 3x3 block? There's only one place, because here, this cell here, has to be a 4 because there's a 1, 2, 3 already in the column, there's a 5 in the block, and a 6, 7, 8, 9 in the block, which means this cage must be a 1, 2 or a 3. Okay, what next, you may say? Well, the first thing I'd probably do at this point, one thing I've noticed, this 5 here has an effect on this 6 cage. This 6 cage can now only be 2 and 4. And that's nice because this 16 cage is 3 cells in size and it already got a 5 in it. So we know the other 2 numbers have got to add up to 11. Well, they can't be 5 and 6 because that would lead to a repeated 5. They can't be 4 and 7, they can't be 2 and 9, so they must be 3 and 8. And you can see this cell here can't contain an 8 because there's already an 8 in the block. So that's going to be a 3. This is going to be an 8. Okay, now what can we do with that, if anything? So we know there's going to be a 4 in one of these 2 positions because of this 4 here. Therefore there'll be a 6 in one of these 2 positions. There can't be a 2 in either of these positions because if there was a 2, this would be an 8, and there's already an 8 here. So in fact there's only one place a 2 can go in this block, and that's here. This must be a 2. So let's put that in. That means this must be a 2. That means there is a 2 in this 16 cage up at the top. And I've still not used geometry at all, so let's just take a quick look at that. In fact, I can use geometry to get a number. We can identify this number. Now, the most important number in any Killer Sudoku is the number 45, and that's because every row, every column, and every 3x3 block contains the numbers from 1 to 9. If you add the numbers from 1 to 9, you get 45. So I know, for example, that the first 2 columns of this grid must add up to 2 lots of 45, i.e. 90. Now if we look at the cages that we already have in the first 2 columns, we have 15 plus 24, that's 39, plus this 6 here, that's 45, plus this 35, that's 80. So I know this cell and this cell must add up to 10, because I know that the 2 columns altogether will add up to 90. Well, if I've already got 3 here, this cell must be a 7. We can put that in. That gives us 6, 8, 9 down this column. It means I can remove the 7s from those 2 positions, so I know now actually there's a 7 in my 16 cage up here as well. So 2 and 7, that's 9. So I'm looking for either a 3 and a 4 or a 1 and a 6 to complete that cage. I'm just trying to see whether I can immediately rule out one of those options. I'm not sure that I can. No, I'm not seeing anything there. Okay, so we're going to have to think harder. So let's try and see what else we can spot. Hang on, we have a 3 here and a 3 here. So there is a 3. In fact, this is 2, 3, 7. So this here must be a 4. And I know there's a 1 in one of these 2 positions. I need a 1 in this 3x3 block. Therefore, we've got 6, 8, 9 down here, which is quite nice. I strongly suspect this 15 cage is extreme. Hang on. I need to put a 4 in this block. Now, because of the rule, in fact, I should have used my own rule that I discussed earlier on in this video. I said when you have a cage that spans 2 3x3 blocks, you have to remember you can't have a repeated number in the cage. So this 4 here is very powerful because we need to put a 4 in this 3x3 block, but it can't go in any of these 3 positions because there is already a 4 in this cage. Therefore, it's got to be in the 15 cage, and in fact it can't be in either of these 2 cells because then it would clash with the 4 here. So this is a 4. And now we need these 2 to add up to 11 without using 4, 7, 2, 9 or 3, 8. So this is 5 and 6, which means this is not a 5, and that means we need 1, 8, 9. So this must be an 8 and a 9. This is 1, 8, 9. This is 1, 8, 9. 1 can't go here because of the 1, 3 pair in column 1 already. Remove the 6s from there. So does this look right now? Yeah, this feels like it's not far wrong. Now we've got a 4 here and a 4 here, so there's a 4 in one of those 2 positions. The 4 can't go here because of the 15 cage. And the other thing I immediately notice is a 4 here is in the same row as this 9 cage. Now 9 is one of those things, when it's in a block of 3, it only has 3 possibilities. 1, 2, 6, 1, 3, 5, and 2, 3, 4. So the immediate thing we can note when we saw 4 in the row is now this 9 cage must contain a 1, which in this instance doesn't really progress our solve much further, but in other cases it can be important. Let me just think about that a bit more. So this is either 1, 2 and 6 or 1, 3 and 5. Can't quite see how to resolve that. This 30 cage, this huge 30 cage in the shape of an H in the central 3x3, Well, that means that the other two cells that are not in the 30 cage have got to add up to 15, because we know that the total for the 30 cage will be, or it's the total for the 3x3 block will be 45. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9 must be in these two squares, i.e. because they've got to add to 15, that means they're either 6 and 9 or they're 7 and 8. Now, can we do any more? Can we restrict that any further? Yes, we can. This can't be a 9, because if this was a 9, these three cells would have to add to 6. They would have to be 1, 2, and 3, which would clash with this arrangement here. So that's not possible. Indeed, 8 isn't possible either, because that would make these three have to add to 7 and be 1, 2, and 4. Also impossible. And 7 is also impossible, because if this was 7, these three cells would have to add to 8, which means they'd either be 1, 2, and 5, or 1, 3, and 4. Either option would clash with the 2 and 4 we've already placed in this 6 cage. So in fact, this is a 6. And therefore this must be a 9. Means we can do a little bit more elimination. Okay, and now that's interesting. Because now we have a 6, 9 here and a 6, 9 here, which means there must be a 6 and a 9 in these three cells. So I feel like I should be able to use that. I suppose it is possible. I think the 6 could go here. If not, obviously, then this 15 cage would be forced to be 6 and 9. I can't quite deduce that, I think. Bother. Okay, let's come back here then. So this 15 cage now does contain a 6, which means these three cells have to add up to 9. That means they can't be 6, 1, 2. They can't be 2, 3, 4, so they must be 1, 3, 5. Let's put that in. That means this square here is a 7, which is nice because that interacts with this 7 on the central cage to give us 7s in those two positions like that. Okay, what else can we say about that? Hang on, I could have gone more. I could do more with this 9. This 9 and this 9 here. Let's just think about which of these three cells can contain a 9. It can't actually be in the 13 cage, because if it was, if this was a 9, this would be a 4. That's not possible. So, and obviously the 9 can't go here. So this is a 9, and this is a 6, which means this is a 6, and this is a 5, which means this 9 cage now can't be 1, 2, 6, it must be 1, 3, 5. It's not a 3. Now this 10 cage now, it can't be 3, 7, this must be 2 and 8, and there's an 8 down here. So in fact it's 2 and 8 in this order, which means this is a 7. And I think we're starting to make very good progress all of a sudden. This now must be a 9 to complete the row. This can't be a 9 here. 6, 6. We need to put a 6. This must be a 6. It's the only place a 6. Oops, not 5. It's the only place a 6 can go. That means this is a 7 to complete the 13 cage. Now I need to put a 7. We have a 7 here, a 7 here, and 7 pencil marked here. So there's only one place a 7 can now go in the central block, and that's into the square. I've posted it there. So we now have a 9 and a 7 in the 24 cage. That adds to 16. I need the other two cells to add to 8 using the numbers 1, 3, and 5. So we can all see, therefore, this is going to have to be a 5, this is a 3, and this is a 1. That means this is a 3 and this is a 2, just unwinding what we've already done there. 2, 2, place a 2 in one of those two positions. We need 1, 4 and 8, so 1, 8, 1, 8 into those squares. Okay, and this 5 here interacts on the bottom block to force a 5 into that square, places a 5 into those two positions, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, and in fact what else do we need here? We need a 1, don't we, down column 4, so that's got to be in one of those positions now, I think. So really, interestingly, we've not even looked at these cells yet. Maybe that's where we'll have to go soon. Yes, maybe we can use this 11 cage. It's not an 8. So what numbers do we need along the bottom row? We need the numbers 1, 6, 7 and 9. We have a 7 here, so this can only be 1, 6 or 9. Well, can this be a 1? Hopefully you can see immediately that no, it can't be, because if it's a 1, we need the rest of the other 3 cells to add to 25. Now that's not possible. You need to know that 7, 8 and 9 add to 24. That's the highest you can get to in 3 cells in a Killer Sudoku, so that is not a 1. Therefore there is a 1 in this 11 cage. And the other number that we need to put in there is going to be a 6, 7, well in fact there's a 9 here, so the only options for this cell are 1, 6, 7. The 11 cage can't contain a 5 because we have a 5 here and a 5 here, so there's a 5 in one of those 3 positions. I'm trying to do this in as elegant a way as possible, but I feel like I'm missing something here. One thing we could just check, again using the geometry of the puzzle, is this 7 and the impact on this 3 by 3 block. So we know these 3 cells here must add to 19. I know 19 plus 11 is 30, so these 3 cells add to 15. Therefore these cells add to 10. It's not as restricted as I was hoping. I can obviously eliminate 4 and 6, but I think that's all. So, okay, so that's not going to be the way to make quick progress. Let's just take a quick stare. Let me hang on, what have we got? So this is a 2 or a 4 into this square to complete column 5. And we can do, this is something I've noticed about computer generated puzzles. They often mimic their symmetry. So if we have a look down column 8 and 9, we have the same sort of thing we had going on in columns 1 and 2. So 28 plus 14 is 42, plus 25 is 67, plus 11 78. So I know that this square and this square must sum to 12, which means this is a 7 or a 9. And we have a 7 in the row, so in fact that's a 9. 3, 5. That's nice. That removes the 5 from this square. Okay. 5s, 3s. This 26 cage is seriously restricted actually. These 3 cells need to add to 19 without, in fact there's a 6 there now, maybe I had that before. So in fact that has to be a 9, it's the only place a 9 can go. So we've now got to make sure these add to 10 without using 3, 7, 1, 9 or 4, 6. So this is 2 and 8. I should have spotted that before, apologies. It's one of the most frustrating things about live solving on a computer is that I don't see the wood for the trees sometimes. So 7 gives us an 8, 9 here. This can't be a 7 anymore. This must be 1 and 6, therefore this must be a 4 in order to complete the 11 cage. That's fantastic. So that means this all unwinds like this. And we really are almost there, I think. So We need to put a 2. This 2 here resolves like that. This can't be an 8 anymore, or a 6. So this is a 9. This must be 8. This must be 6. This must be 7. Let's remove the pencil mark up here. I need to put a 3 into one of these two positions, and you can see there's a 3 up there. So 3, 5. We can use our trick with the 5s again now. We have a 5 here and a 5 here, but I know this cell can't be a 5 because that would lead to a repeated 5 in the cage. Therefore, this 14 cage does contain a 5. Now that means the other two numbers have got to add up to 9. So we can't have 4 and 5, we can't have 3 and 6. We could have 2 and 8, sorry, 2 and 7, but we can't have 1 and 8 because we've already got 1 and an 8 here. So in fact this must be 2, 7, 5, which means this must be 2. It's the only option of those that's available. So that must be 7 because of the 7 here. This must be 5. That's 1, that's 7, that's 5, just unwinding pencil marks. That's 3, that's 1, this is 4. Now if you look down column 9 here, I need to place 1, 6 and 8 in the column. We have a 1 and a 6 here, so this is an 8, that's a 1, that's an 8, 9, 1 like that. This is a 6 and a 1. This must be a 1 now. So I need to make these two cells add up to 7 without using 1, 6 or 2, 5. So that must be 3, 4 in that order. Assuming I haven't made a mistake, that must unwind the 2 and the 4 here. 2 and a 6 to complete this column must be like that. Now assuming everything's worked out, this should be an 8, which looks good actually. 3, 4 and 8 means this is an 8, this is a 3, this is a 4, this is an 8, this is a 6, and this is a 9. So that's how I would have solved the puzzle. David, I hope that's helpful to you. I hope for those of you who are interested in Killer Sudoku, you got something out of watching me solve that. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.